My name is Jacob Thomas, and these are some success tips for beginning educators. Learning is generally defined as a permanent change in behavior, skills, knowledge, or attitudes resulting in identifiable psychological or social experiences. For teachers, learning is usually something referred to something that happens within school or within the classroom, even though learning obviously occurs outside of these environments. What it means to be an effective educator. The main thing is classroom management. Managing a learning environment is both one of the largest responsibilities and the biggest challenge with all educators, beginning and veteran. Some things that are done as a part of their classroom management may include monitoring the class to see if any student needs assistance on a problem, if they have questions about a lesson, a topic, an assignment, actively monitoring for behaviors that may occur, monitor students and keep a similar routine, building connections with your students to allow them to know that you are a safe person and your class environment is safe for them to be themselves. Learning focused environments, the easiest management problems to solve are ones that do not occur in the first place. Having your class set up in a way that is effective, productive, safe, inviting is something that is good for preventing problems to happen in the first place. Having some posters hanging on the walls and making your class feel warm and inviting is something that is extremely important, especially in younger grades and middle grades, as compared to having just a bare wall that makes it feel boring and they just want to zone out. Having technology easily accessed for students to be able to assist them in their learning and in research. Make the class reflect the students that are in there. You wouldn't have very expensive or very nice porcelain vases and glass materials hanging on the walls or on the shelves in a kindergarten class. That would be more something that you would have hanging on the wall or on the shelf in a high school class. And you wouldn't have lesson plans or posters with topics themed with Mickey Mouse or Disney Channel, SpongeBob, whatever, in a high school class. But that would be something more of for elementary school students. It is essentially just having your class reflect the age group that is within it to make it feel inviting, warm, comfortable, and something that they can currently relate to. Teaching styles. An effective educator needs to be both warm and demanding. You don't want your students to fear you or dislike you for being too strict. An example of this could be the substitute from the book Miss Nelson is Missing, Miss Viola Swamp, where the students didn't like her and they ended up missing their teacher, Miss Nelson, who you could say is the next bullet point, who was sort of soft and didn't want to punish the students. You don't want your class to be a class with no structure and have the students cause trouble because they know that you will not give them an appropriate consequence or hold up to what you say. You also don't want to be detached where you don't care, don't walk around, you don't engage, you don't build connections, and you don't notice when your students are struggling academically or behaviorally. You'd want to be more of a teacher who is positive, kind, and supportive, but also has the students know when it's time to get business done and when to do their work. Examples of this could be Mr. Feeney, Miss Nelson after Miss Viola Swamp comes to the class, and Dewey Finn from School of Rock. Communication is key to being an effective educator. because you would have to not only communicate with your students, but with your colleagues, with administration, parents, and even the community to a certain extent. Some functions of communication are content talk, which focuses on what is being learned and the curriculum, procedural talk, which are the rules, routines, and procedures to be successful in the classroom, and control talk, which is preventing and correcting behavior before or when they occur. Communication can also be things like using sounds, nonverbal cues like finger motions, eye contact, and facial expressions. I had a educator at my last interview who mentioned when she wants her kids to come in and sit down or sit down after getting up to go get something, she would do a whistle with a downward pitch. And when she wants them to stand up, she would whistle in an upward pitch, kind of like a slide whistle. Some things that I've learned from my field experiences that I took notes of and want to implement in my classes are obviously building connections. All of the educators I interviewed and observed all mentioned building connections as being key to being effective with your students. Getting to know your students, greeting them, respecting them, getting to know some of their interests and what they want to do as they get older, whether they want to go to a trade school, go to a certain college, just go right into the workforce, Army, Navy, military service branch. One school I observed that was in a small rural part of Coweta County, and the teacher said that she taught the current students that she is teaching were children of students that she taught in years past. And that school is more of a generational school where grandparents and great-grandparents went to the school, as well as the current parents and students that are still within that school system. At every school, the kids and the educators were able to joke around without things getting out of hand. Students were asking the teachers if they were going to go to their after-school activities to support them. And the kids overall felt comfortable within their classes. There were behaviors that I observed in elementary school. One educator mentioned in an interview sassiness and minor aggravation, which I also observed in one class where a student was putting his stuff in another classmate's seat and wouldn't move it. I noticed in elementary school conflicts, the teachers had the students talk it out themselves, allowing for the students to self-advocate. And if the conflict continued or was unable to be resolved, the teacher would step in as a mediator rather than stepping in to take control of the entire situation. She was still allowing for self-advocacy and was allowing and being there to ensure each student was respecting one another. In the middle school classes, it was mainly talking and just interrupting while the teacher or another student was talking. And the teacher told them, "Oh, that's cool. That's interesting. Let's get back to what we were doing," or "Let's let so-and-so finish." And those were the main behaviors that I observed. Rules and routines. Among educators across the board, they all said very similar things, a part of their rules and routines. All would greet students, do a quick moment of casual talk, and then get into their lessons. One music educator I observed in interviews said that she uses AI voice as a part of her routine. She will stand at the door and greet every student as they walk in. As the students are walking in and sitting down in their seats, she would have a AI voice playing in a loop, another greeting, telling them to come in, have a seat, get your stuff out, get ready, and then it will read through a list of the rules. And it will loop it until she comes in and stops it. And many of the rules across the board were be respectful, be responsible, and be reliable. Classroom management was also another big thing that they were key on when I was there observing. Majority of the classes I observed were music classes in elementary school and band classes in middle school. Since those were the main educators to respond to emails that did not have a conflict with scheduling. I emailed a science teacher, but it just so happened to be the end of the 9 weeks when they were benchmark testing, so I was unable to go in and observe them when I should have. In elementary school, seating was mainly student chose, and they would have assigned seats if the student needed an accommodation as a part of their IEP or 504 to be able to see the screen or be close to be able to hear the teacher or the speaker. If there were class conflicts or if they had an assignment where they needed to be at a desk instead of sitting on the music risers. One teacher arranged her elementary school students based on height so that they would be able to see the screen, see her, and see the music. And in middle school, and the same thing can be said about high school, music-wise, they are arranged based on instrumentation. So the woodwinds would be closer to the front, closer to the director, and percussion and brass would be farther back. Some things that I was told by some educators, the first two were said generally by every single educator. Do as you say what you mean, and never say anything you cannot or will not back up. And those essentially were said when I asked about behaviors and consequences and punishments. They essentially said never say or give a consequence that you will not hold up and support. And they all generally gave the same example. If you tell a student that they have to sit out for recess, but then recess comes around, you let them go, that's not only going to show that student that they can misbehave and nothing will happen and you won't hold up to the consequences that you give them, but it will also show that other students in your classes the same thing, and you would have more conflicts and more behaviors arise because the students feel like you are not a pushover, but will not hold up to the consequences that you give them. Verbal praises were consistently noticed by all educators, especially the middle school bands classes that I observed. They were beginning 6th graders and 7th graders, so they were not the best, to put it nicely. They were missing pitches, missing rhythms. They didn't have confidence to play when their strongest player was out. And when they were able to hit the pitches consistently after consistently messing up, and when they were able to get through the entire song, it was observed from all the band directors that they had pure excitement and joy seeing their kids grow within a 5-minute time span. I had the opportunity to observe a class during the planning period of the educator I originally went to observe. And I was allowed to step in and sit in to a 2nd grade class. And she had very similar things in terms of joking around, being able to have that kind of bond with her students. And both educators at North Fayette Elementary School mentioned the book Harry Wong's First Day of School, How to Be an Effective Educator. I want to end off talking about this book for a little bit. Harry Wong's A Book for Teachers by Teachers, The First Day of School, How to Be an Effective Educator, was highly recommended to me by both teachers at North Fayette Elementary School that I had the opportunity to go in and observe. And I had the opportunity to flip through a book, and it seemed pretty interesting and intriguing. I was unable to find a copy of it, however. And those are the success tips for beginning educators.